So for this segment, what we're going to be discussing is the difference between active voice and passive voice. Now, from one of the previous talks then, we know that the noun is a person, place, or thing. The noun will either be a subject or an object in the sentence. That's all. So when this first grammar organization scheme and everything was all set up back in the early days, I remember back when I was young, when the Earth's crust was cooling, I remember all the English teachers got together and they said, well, how are we going to organize all these things? And so during that time, the nouns have a very strong union, and what they said was, the noun said that they will only be a subject or an object in the sentence, and only one at a time. So you can't ask a noun to serve as a subject and an object both at the same time, because that would be a violation of their contract. So this is why when we're writing and when we're doing our own work, we have to be careful when we're constructing our sentences, because if we do happen to ask a noun to be a subject and an object at the same time, that would be a violation of the contract. It's a workload issue. We'd have parts of speech walking around campus carrying signs saying this campus is unfair to nouns, and what would happen is, of course, most of the teachers in the teachers union, they wouldn't cross that picket line. The Teamsters wouldn't deliver things to the campus. So it's a serious thing, because the whole campus would be shut down. Students wouldn't be able to finish their classes. So it's really important to make sure that when we're doing our sentences or writing and checking, that we use the nouns only as a subject and object, and we make sure that we don't use them both at the same time. So when we're talking about active voice, in active voice, the subject does the action. So in active voice, we have the subject doing the action. In passive voice, we have the subject receives the action. So the difference between active voice and passive voice is basically which direction is the action going. Is it going from the subject, or is it going back to the subject? Lots of times people say, oh, passive voice, that uses more kind of ordinary speech, or maybe it just talks about the past or something like that. But that's not the case. It doesn't matter whether it's happening in the past, or whether it's happening in the present, or where it's happening in the future. The important thing is, which direction is the action going? Is it going from the subject, or is it coming back to the subject? So knowing this, we can see that we don't use the passive voice when we're talking about conditioned verbs, because it relates to the action. We can also use passive voice when we're talking about possession, but primarily it means that the direction that the action goes. So for example, we could take a look at an example here. Well, let's maybe keep this. So we could use the example here. Gloria baked a cake with her mother at home yesterday. So Gloria baked a cake with her mother at home yesterday. Here we have our verb, baked, and we can see that, yes, it's an action verb. So we have the action that's taking place. And then we know that we're concerned about the subject, so it has something to do with the nouns in the sentence. And we can see that here we have Gloria, that's a noun. Here we have cake, that's a noun. Here we have mother, that's a noun. Here we have home, and that's a noun, person, place, or thing. And yesterday. Yesterday is a person, place, or thing. So then, if these are our nouns, that means that they're either going to be a subject or an object in the sentence. So if it's a noun, it means it's either going to be a subject or an object in the sentence. So let's take a look at these. If we look at Gloria, is this the subject or is this the object? Well, clearly this is the subject, because we're not going to objectify Gloria here in class, right? Or here in this lecture. So we don't want to make her an object or objectify her. So this is our subject. Now what about cake? Is this a subject or is this an object? If it's a noun, it has to be one of those two. And so we can see, well, this is the object. But if it's an object, what is it the object of? So in order to be an object, it has to be an object of something. And in this case, we can see that this is the object of the verb. So that's our object of the verb. What about mother? Subject or object? Well, we can see again, this is an object. Object of what? What is this an object of? Well, right here, we have this, which forms our grammatical unit. It begins with a preposition, so we can say this is an object of the preposition. What about home? Is this a subject or is this an object? Once again, this is an object. And again, we have a prepositional phrase, so this is the object of the preposition. Now what about yesterday? This looks like a noun, but it isn't really. Because this is telling us the time that she baked the cake. So although this looks like a noun, it isn't serving as either a subject or an object. So it can't be a noun because the noun will only be a subject or an object. So what we have to realize is that this is an adverb. This is an adverb because it's telling us something about the action that took place, right? So here we have an action. So that's our action. For this action, we have a doer. So Glory is the doer of the action, and this is the object of the verb. This is the receiver. So here's our receiver of the action. So what we have here is we have a doer that's doing the action. Here we have this receiver of the action. And then these things here, these prepositional phrases, serve to tell us more information about the core meaning of the sentence, where we have our subject, we have our verb, and we have our object. Now the nice thing about English is that you can take these things and you can move these things around and put them in different positions, still maintain the same meaning, but have some variety and some change and maybe some differences in how you write things. So we could say, yesterday, a cake was baked at home by Gloria with her mother. Same meaning, right? Haven't changed the meaning here. So if that's the case, then where's our verb? Here we have, now by changing this around, we have a two-word verb, was baked. So we have a two-word verb. This is the action. That's our verb. And then where are the nouns? Well, we can see that cake is a noun, home is a noun, Gloria is a noun, and mother is a noun. We haven't changed any of the meaning, and we haven't changed any of the functions of any of these words. Because once again, Gloria is the doer of the action. The cake is the receiver of the action. So the question is, now that we've changed things around, where's the subject in the sentence? Is it cake? Is it home? Is it Gloria? Is it mother? Our subject needs to be one of these nouns. And of course, since Gloria is the doer here, obviously, Gloria is still our subject, right? So Gloria is still our subject because she's the doer of this, even though we change things around. Wait a minute. What's this? Isn't this a preposition? And if this is a preposition, what's this? That's got to be a prepositional phrase. And if this is the prepositional phrase, then what's this? Gloria is the object. So if Gloria is the object of the preposition, this can't be the subject because we know that a noun can either be a subject or an object, but not both at the same time. So I'm sorry, Gloria, but you've just been objectified here in class. So that means that here's our subject. In this case, cake is the subject of the verb. And then by Gloria, this has become a prepositional phrase. And what we have now is we see that the subject receives the action. Here what we have is we have passive voice. Because this is the action, that's the receiver of the action, and the receiver of the action is the subject in the sentence. Here we had active voice. The subject does the action. Because here is our action, here's our subject, and the doer is the subject of the sentence. So this is active voice, this is passive voice. Now, when we're writing, well, many times when we're using action verbs like this, we do have the option of doing it either in active voice or in passive voice. But active voice is always preferred. And the reason for this is that if we look at how this works, if we're using active voice, here I have my subject that's doing the action, there's the action's being done to an object, and then we have the rest of the information. When I use passive voice, here's my subject, here's the action, oh, the action's going back there, oh, where's the doer, and then where's the rest of the information? It becomes complicated and confusing when we do this because it slows down the flow of information. When we use active voice, it goes in a straight line. When we use passive voice, it starts out in a straight line, then it goes back, then we have to look someplace, can find where is our doer. And I'm sorry about this, Gloria, but because we have a subject and because we have a verb here, subject and verb, that's all we really need in order to have our sentence. So really, Gloria, we don't even need you in this sentence at all because you've now become redundant or unnecessary. So what happens many times is that when we use passive voice or when passive voice is there, it doesn't give us all the information because the doer of the action can be omitted from the sentence. So lots of times people use passive voice because they want to emphasize the receiver. So if they emphasize that the action is going back to there, like for example, if someone stole my car, the important thing is my car was stolen. I don't have a ride. I don't have transportation. That my car was stolen. The important thing is not who did it, but the important thing is that this action was done to my car. Then in that case, we will use passive to slow people down and help them to realize that this is the important thing is that the action was done to this. But most of the time what we do is we use active voice to show that it goes in the straight line. And we can always tell passive voice because whenever we use passive voice, we always use some form of the be verb here along with the participle form of the verb. So we can say the cake was baked, the cake was eaten, the lesson was learned, the car was driven. We can use all those for past tense, but we can also use these for present tense, right? Now, the lecture is taped. The lecture is being taped. The words are being spoken. We could use it for future. the party will be held. We can use it for past, some kind of continuous action going on at this time. So regardless of the verb tense, whether it's past, present, or future, if we use this kind of be verb, is being, what has been, will be, any one of those ones, along with the participle, this shows us that this is the passive, where here we just have the main verb by itself in most cases, right? Thank you.